Hey, what's happening, everyone? William Johnson here. Podcast. Do you have any favorite podcasts? Personally love to listen to different podcasts. I listen to a lot of music. Obviously, being a musician, being a professional musician by vocation, I have to learn a lot of music and I have to study a lot of music. And also being a music educator and just learning myself, I'm constantly listening to music. So sometimes I like to take a break and not listen to anything, even when I'm in the car, just nothing. But podcasts, like audio speaking podcasts, they're a great way for me to break up just the constant, I was gonna say onslaught, but that makes it almost sound like I'm just constantly being, negatively hit by music when it's usually not negative. But when I'm constantly listening to music and I like a break, it's nice to have just the spoken word, speech. And I love to listen to podcasts in the car and just learn about something, especially if I have different podcasts for different things that I'm into and different things that I'm learning. For instance, right now I'm doing a video, which means I have to use a video camera, or a DSLR or mirrorless camera, some type of camera. I have to use audio. So, yeah, I'm doing music, but I'm also working out of my studio. So that's mixing engineering stuff or audio engineering. Then there's video work and video editing. There's cinematography. There's storytelling. There's working a YouTube channel. There's all of these different things, business, actual music. And so I have my percussion podcast. I have my video podcast. I have my audio podcast. I love history. I don't know if you've ever watched this channel and seen me talking and wondering what that is behind me. That's actually a history timetable. History timetable? A timeline of world history back there. But I studied history in my undergrad, and I'm a big fan of, world civilization, just American history and just history in general, music history. I studied ethnomusicology as well, so I like to listen to anthropology and historical podcasts. So anyhow, I wanted to give a couple podcasts that I listen to, especially percussion podcasts. And then if there's any that you listen to, you can comment below and let's start a discussion below on some good podcasts and just help each other out as a community. I'm always on the hunt for another good podcast. So two percussion related, anyhow, since I am a percussionist and I know a lot of people that watch this channel are also percussionists. Two percussion podcasts that I listen to quite a bit are Discussions in Percussion, and Damon Grant hosts Percussion Discussions in Discussions in Percussions. That's a tongue twister there. Discussions in Percussion, but that's a great one, and there are a lot of great interviews on that particular podcast. Now, the way that it's done is it's usually centered around and interviewing some percussionists in the field, although every now and then they might interview someone who's not a percussionist. But the cool thing about that podcast by Damon Grant and also Marcos Torres is a co-host on the channel, is they start off with music news and then resources and and then they'll have like a gear spotlight. So they have a lot of dude, it's a ton of information on that podcast. It can be actually overwhelming in a good way, but you can go on their website and go through the show notes and talk about a resource. It's really good. The last few that they've done, they had Pete Zimmer, drummer, educator, record label owner, and more. They had Jose Mangual Jr., percussionist for Hector Lavoe, Willie Colon, Ruben Blaze, and more. They had Stephen Bidwell on there, Joel Rosenblatt, who's a couple of recently. Michael Campitello, that was a good one. Sikiru Adepohu. I don't know if I said that right. I hope I did. Forgive me. Ian Hale, Mike Truesdale, Miguel Marino, Michito Sanchez. That was a really good one, too. Jonathan Scales. Man, they've had people. They've had Luis Conte on there. Oh, dude, just some of the greats. Great podcast. Another one is Drummer's Resource. Man, I used to listen to Drummer's Resource every week. Drummer's Resource. I haven't listened to it in a while, but I'm always going on there and checking out what he's got going on. That is an excellent podcast. And I would really recommend, if you've never listened to Drummers Resource podcast, check out the Benny Greb issues episodes, where he talks about routine, and he talks about practice and the art of practice, man, and just his philosophy towards it. Those are some very insightful episodes. So that's Drummers Resource, and that is Nick Raffini does the hosting there. Nick does an incredible job. Recently, they've had Lonnie Smith on there. Daniel Glass co-hosts a series on there. Daniel Glass is amazing with the history of the drums and all of that. They've had Brian Griffin, Scott Rubin, all about publishing. Man, they talk about business. They talk about the business of the side of things, as well as just the backstory on these musicians. Ash Sohn was on there. I'm a big fan of Ash Sohn's drumming. He's incredible. Ulysses Owens Jr. had a roundtable discussion drumming podcast on there not long ago. Carter McLean, Dom Famularo. Oh, dude. Drummers Resource. Great. Another one is LP, Latin Percussion, the company. They actually have a podcast. They have a great podcast called We Are Rhythm. That's by LP. We Are Rhythm. That's a good one, and they interview a lot of the musicians that are on that endorse LP, which that's like, I mean, I was going to say everybody, but it's not everybody, but, LP is an iconic company. So they've got a lot of interesting, fascinating interviews on there. Gombops has a great one too. And I just listened to a really good one with Eliel Lasso, and that one was fantastic. That was a great one. That's the Gombops podcast. I'm pulling that up. Who have they done recently? It's called Percussion Loft by Gombops. Percussion Loft. Ignacio Berroa, that was a really good one. That's the last one I would listen to, actually. Daniel de los Reyes was on there. Jamie Haddad, Lenny Castro. Anytime I see Lenny Castro on a podcast, I'm listening. There's so many nuggets that they give. It's one thing to teach me how to play this rhythm, but when you learn a little bit of the backstory behind some of these artists, then you get to understand why their instruments sound the way they do. For instance, some of these percussionists have backgrounds in the piano or guitar or singing, and so it makes sense why they're able to tune their instruments so well. Not that you have to play piano to be able to tune your congas very well, but understanding that these percussionists some of them have vibraphone and marimba and violin or trumpet, some instrument instrument as well. These are musicians. Some of them, a lot of them read and are very proficient at sight reading and have these other, skills. And it's helpful to know these things, because then you can understand and get in a little bit in their head as to not just the technicalities and the technical things that they do, but how and why they're able to get there. I love those nuggets that you wouldn't get otherwise. And then you might, if you're like me, you listen to some of these interviews and you find out that so-and-so that you idolize doesn't even read a lick of music. And that could be encouraging, very encouraging as well, especially when they're operating at such a high level. But yeah, those are some podcasts that are really good. Another one that I've listened to before was by Paul Jennings, and I don't know if he's still doing. I don't know if he's still doing his podcast. I used to listen to it quite a bit, but I don't think. Let me say, I was gonna say I don't think he's still doing it, but he might still be doing it. But the cajon player, I'll have to, if I can find that, I'll put that down in the description. There was an interview that he did with an incredible cajon player. He's very well known in the community, and they went through some very interesting history of the cajon, a little bit deeper than a lot of the surface stuff that we often hear. So there's a lot of great podcasts out there. If you're getting started in with percussion and music, I really would recommend the Drummer's Resource with the Benny Greb episodes, especially if you're still learning how to craft your practice sessions. I think it's very important if you don't have some other music background to really understand what it means to practice and what that looks like. So, anyhow, those are a few percussion podcasts that I listen to and that I recommend that are really good. Discussions in Percussion, Drummer's Resource, We Are Rhythm by LP, Percussion Loft by Gone Bobs. Those are just a few. If I can remember some more, I will put them down in the description. And if you know some others, please share. Anyhow, God bless you. I love you all. Thank you for watching. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you, and I'll see you soon.